is your brains and the data to interpret whether vapor intrusion is a possibility. Keeping in mind, vapor intrusion has to be addressed as a rec if it's a potential, just like any other rec. If there's a potential for hazardous materials on your site, you need to make it a rec. And that's how vapor intrusion gets addressed. You don't need to do any kind of modeling. You don't need to do a modeling program. You don't need to buy a separate report or package reports, which get aerial photos, CDs, fire insurance maps, database, 1 mile radius database search. Gives you everything you need to need for the most part for vapor intrusion and to identify whether it's a potential. Now keep in mind, what is your job as an assessor or a report writer? It's really to find out what recs are on your site. And that's what you do in a phase 1. So, potential for vapor intrusion. Well, the ASTM standards and all appropriate inquiry don't address vapor intrusion specifically. Either does the SBA SOP 10.5, I think K now. K now. And the important thing is it does address vapor intrusion, but it just doesn't talk about it specifically. So basically, while completing a phase 1 environmental site assessment, addressing vapor intrusion of hazardous substances is required. Why is it required? I just said that they don't require vapor intrusion. Well, they don't. They call it migration. And we're going to go through and show you how they call it migration. And they call it hazardous materials, not just vapor intrusion. So all standards, ASTM, EPA, all appropriate inquiry, SBA, require that you address the presence or likely presence of hazardous materials. So to me, that's potential. So either you know something's there or there is the possibility of something being there, and that is potential. So let's say it's potential for vapor intrusion. Well, they don't define vapor intrusion. Well, vapor intrusion is migration, and we'll talk about that a little later on, of hazardous materials, a recognized environmental condition under the subject property or within the subject buildings. The most common hazardous materials related to vapor intrusion or migration are, of course, volatile organic compounds. Now, it could be also some semi-volatile organic compounds, but really, let's face it, it's mostly volatile organic compounds, and it usually have to do with dry cleaners or solvent usages in automotive repair or manufacturing or that kind of thing. So remember, as we go along, if you have any questions, go ahead and stop and ask me, or I'll keep talking pretty quick, and you'll wonder what the heck, this thing was over and you didn't even get to learn anything. So hopefully you can pick up just a little bit from this webinar. If you pick up 10% of something you didn't know before in a free webinar, you're doing pretty good. So it's a benefit for everybody. So let's go over it. ASTM 1527-13, specifically in 7.1, states the objective. The purpose of this phase 1 site assessment is to identify, to the extent feasibly pursuant to the process prescribed herein, recognized environmental conditions in connection with the property. So what is a recognized environmental condition? Well, if you want to go to the next section, and you'll find these exactly quoted in the standards. Recognized environmental condition is the presence or likely presence of hazardous materials or hazardous substances or petroleum products in or at a property. One, due to a release to the environment. Well, that's, that kind of opens up the whole world, doesn't it? Two, under conditions indicative of a release to the environment. Well, that's where you see, staining on the floor, running into a crack, or drums that are so rusted, or outdoors and overflowing, or getting ready to overflow from rainwater, or all kinds of things. Or three, under conditions that pose a material threat of a future release to the environment. So the real point is the presence or likely presence. In my mind, that's the presence or potential of any hazardous substance or petroleum products in or at the property. So ASTM 1527-13 also states, because remember, it doesn't cover vapor intrusion by stating vapor intrusion, but it does cover it in migration. For the purposes of this practice, migrate and migration refers to the movement of hazardous substances or petroleum products in any form. Could be liquid, vapor, semi-volatile, could be, transported in any way, any form. Solid and liquid at the surface or subsurface, and vapor in the subsurface. That's migration. That's vapor intrusion, vapor. Okay, so here comes the big clincher. Now you've got the ammunition in order to present to a financial institution or your client if they're demanding that you get one of our competitors' separate reports or do some vapor modeling. You can point this out. It's not required in a phase one. And if you're going to do it in a phase one, the phase one is going to cost you more money. So because during this time, one of our, the 900-pound gorilla competitor of ours was trying, before the 2013 standards came out, was trying to make it required that you follow vapor migration modeling and separate report and all kinds of things. And the ASTM put in here, note 4, vapor migration in the subsurface is described in Guide E2600. That was written by Tony Bonacore, who still works for the company and still is their main marketing guru. However, nothing in this practice should be construed to require application of the Guide E2600 standard to achieve compliance with all appropriate requirements. More basically, that is saying, in summary, that is saying you do not need or you are not required to have a separate vapor migration report in any way, shape, or form, especially using E2600 or doing any modeling or anything like that. That is a complete separate thing. That is in the next step action of a phase one. In a phase two, really to figure out whether you really got a vapor intrusion potential. So, has everybody got that? That's pretty clear that the regulations do not require you in any way, shape, or form to do a separate vapor intrusion report or a vapor intrusion modeling in any way. But what it does require you to do is, do you have to address it just like you have to address all other hazardous substances or petroleum products in under all other um, gosh, how do you say it? In all other forms, you have to address vapor intrusion. And vapor is just one form, from liquid to solid to whatever. Vapor is just another form, and yes, you have to address it. And if you have potential for vapor intrusion on your subject property, either from on-site sources or off-site sources, you need to address it. And you need to have a section in your report, or I would suggest, that specifically addresses vapor intrusion. Now, do you get enough information on all the historical items and everything else that you get to address vapor intrusion? Of course you do. You just have to use that information. So, any questions at all? If there's no questions, I'm going to continue. There's your power in order to fight anybody who says you have to do vapor intrusion as part of the ASTM standards. It is not part of the ASTM standards, and it doesn't look like it's going to be part of the ASTM standards in the next set of standards coming out at the end of this year. So, there are some special circumstances here. So, the Small Business Administration SOP 5010-5J, which is now K, specifically stated that if there was one time an on-site dry cleaning facility which may have utilized chlorinated solvents such as tetrachloroethylene, PCE, or trichloroethene, TCE, and or petroleum-based solvents like Stoddard solvent. In the old days, they used Stoddard solvent. And it doesn't matter when that dry cleaner was on site, whether it was 1940, 1920, 1950, 1980. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've only got one listing of that site in your historical data. You must not only complete a phase 1, but you must complete a phase 2 environmental site assessment in addition to the phase 1. And that is absolutely law as, when was it law? I think it was law January 1st, 2018. And most people are already being called to the table by it. So that's under special use facilities under the SOP 5105K. You can find that. And that's basically because they had too many problems in the past. So we're really not going to touch on the main compounds that cause vapor intrusion. We will go over this in part 2 in super detail. But really the couple most common things are dry cleaning, of course, PERC, PCE, TCE, perchloroethylene, tetrachloroethene, trichloroethene, and then automotive related because of the degreasers, oils, brake cleaner, carburetor cleaner, commercial solvents, that kind of stuff. These are your main things you got to really look for. So you're really looking for methylene chloride, PERC, TCE, toluene, xylene, methylethyl ketone, 1,1-trichloroethane. So those are the main things. We'll go over them all in part 2 of this when we start trying to find some of these things. You do have certain environmental factors that play a part in it. So what type of soil you have, what type of chemical it is, where the source location was, groundwater conditions. And again, like I said, we'll go over some of this, weather conditions, biodegradation processes. Well, biodegradation is such a slow process in the most case, unless you supplement it, that in most of our lifetimes, biodegradation isn't going to take care of most of these contaminants. Underground conduits is really an important thing, especially if you think it's from an offsite source, because a gas line, a water line, a sewer line going or coming onto your site is a huge content for volatile organic chemicals or vapor intrusion. And a lot of people don't look at that and don't think of that. I have an example of where there was an old creek that was covered over, and obviously they put in piping or storm drain piping and then covered it over. And you can see where that creek kept coming from the adjacent side onto your side. And it was a manufacturing plant. We'll kind of go over that case study and look at it a little bit and get more into it. But so underground conduits is probably your biggest thing for getting something. If you're in a strip mall and your site, let's say, is a liquor store, but 5 doors down, you've got a dry cleaner, there's a very good potential that there's a utility conduit that goes from that dry cleaner right by your site. And it really depends on, the direction the sewers go, utilities go, and all that. But those are very easy to identify when you're on your sidewalk. So, as a real quick overview, because I don't want to waste your time and take too much of your time, we went over what regulations dictated why and what you had to do to address potential for vapor intrusion. We also went over that none of them require vapor intrusion specifically, but they do require vapor migration, which is basically the same thing. If there is the potential for vapor intrusion, it is a recognized environmental condition, period. There's no waffling on this. Your job is to protect the buyer, the seller, the yeah. Be really, really careful on and also some of our competitor reports. Now it is required that the environmental professional, at least for the SBA, it is law, must have $1 million of environmental errors and emissions. Not just engineers' environmental errors and emissions. It must have an environmental right. That means that if you're using one of our competitors that don't have environmental errors and emissions, they may have 30 million general liability, but that excludes environmental. They may even have 30 million errors and emissions or professional liability insurance. But if it doesn't have an environmental rider, you're not covered for that $1 million. So you put that in your phase 1 report to an SBA lender, and guess what? You're liable for their data. And if you read the terms and conditions and limits and liabilities in our competitors' reports, you are not covered for anything. You take full liability of everything you get and receive, and it's your problem. And then they limit their coverage if you decide to sue them or go to arbitration to what you paid for the report. So if you paid $100 for the report, first of all, you get ripped off because ours are 75 or 74. And second of all, they don't have insurance and you're not covered, and we are. We stand behind every one of our products. If we make a mistake, we'll fix it, we'll help you, we'll do whatever we can. Watch what you do. Make sure you use a company that has environmental, errors and emissions, or professional liability insurance, period. Okay, so quickly review for possible vapor intrusion. So when you do that, and we're going to go over this in part 2, you really need to review everything, thinking about all the potential things that could happen. The first place we're going to start when we do the part 2 is in the radius search report, the ERS rec check report. And then we're going to go ahead and go through all the historical information, and that really, and we'll go through case studies and show you where you pick up the potential for vapor intrusion. Now, our study obviously is an extreme case, and there's little nuances. But if you're unsure, you should always default on the conservative side so you don't get sued down the road. And you've got to protect your clients and everybody else involved in the property transaction. That's your job. Now, one of the neat things that our radius search report provides you that no competitor of ours has, or if they do, they're violating our copyright infringement. And that is, and I'm going to show you, give me about a second and I'll pull up this report showing you what I'm talking about. I actually thought I had it open, but you know how that is. Okay, so this is our basic radius search report. Really easy to use, really easy to get around. You click on the bookmarks, then you can get around and get anywhere. We've made it so it's easy and user-friendly. But what we have that no one else has, this is Boston. This is showing the site only out to about a quarter of a mile. But what it's showing is all the air permits. And it's showing their potential dispersion based on prevailing wind from NOAA. Pretty cool, huh? So would you want to live in the middle of those, where all those things intersect right here? See my mouth? I wouldn't want to live there. I think that'd be crazy. But this is a good place to start your vapor intrusion, because right there you see you've got one really close to you, and you'd go look up the details of map point 39 and see how close it really is to you. And because if you've got someone who's got a permit, you know they use reasonably decent amount of volatile organic chemicals, or they wouldn't need a permit. Now it's going to be an auto body, manufacturing, photo processor, not so much photo processors anymore because of digital cameras, but you know, dry cleaners, you name it. That's what you're going to show up on here on who gets air permits. And so this is a handy tool to start finding those without having to read every single little detail just to find the air permits. So let's go back. So we provide that to you, and that's free. That air permit thing is free. It comes with every radius search report. There is a button you can press if you don't want it for some reason, and that's possible. But we provide you with all the data you need when you buy a package from us. And a package includes aerial photos, fire insurance maps, city directories, radius search report, and if you do a big package, liens, And we can add building permits, but I'm telling you, if you're buying those from somebody, you're far better off getting them when you're out in the field in the local area. Just run into the building permit and see what you can get. Remember, our job is not only to supply you with the highest quality historical and data we can provide you with, but also to make it cost effective for you. And that's what we do. And easy to use is cost effective. All our data shoots into a report writing template. That report writing template, if you're one of our clients, we can take your report writing template, merge it into our report writing template, and you get your report basically with all the data shot in that we bring in, and it makes it really easy to review. Do we put everything in a light box? No, we don't. That even though people like that, it takes time. It takes time you don't need to spend to review the photos, to review the fire insurance maps, to review the city directories. We put a red box or a parcel map over your site, and right away you can find your site, and you just flip from newest to oldest, right through aerials, right through fire insurance maps, and you're done. You don't have to try to align them. You don't have to play with them. If you like that light box, you can download a light box and put all your images in a light box. Adobe has a free light box. Use it. So, it's not a big deal. But ERS is here to work with you. If you ever have any suggestions, any problems, any concern, you can contact me directly and we'll take care of you. So, is there any questions? Does anybody have anything they want to talk about? This afternoon, we're going to talk about our app. It's a real quick webinar, but we have a great app for your Android or your iPhone, where you can stand in front of a property and really push a button and it sends us an email. You got to send on the email, generates the email with your lat long standing right in front of the building, and you get to find out, what's on the site before you do the site inspection, or what's on the site before you bid it. Maybe this is going to be a real complicated phase one and you just wanted to go out and peek at the property, run one of these on the property, and right away you're going to know. They're free, remember that, to our clients. Right away you're going to know whether the site's going to cost you more to do the phase one or not, or whether your client's so sensitive to concerns that maybe they shouldn't even do a phase one, right? So in any case, at 1 o'clock today, we'll be doing a little talk on our app. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, if no one has any questions, it was a pleasure having you at one of our webinars. You can see that I try to give you a lot of information quickly and quick and dirty. We do teach classes on how to write or use our report writing template or your report writing template. We also do courses on webinars on site inspections, interpreting the historical data, not just for vapor intrusion, but for everything. We have a bunch of different webinars, and they can be seen on our website. We also post them all on YouTube, and so you can go back and watch them and use them any way you want. They're all free because we're trying to help you and your employees become better at what they do and understand what we do a little bit, so you can understand that we're here for you and to make this work. Sanborn Copyrights is, of course, going to court right now, and so we'll see when that ends up. but we don't provide the full fire insurance map to anybody. We provide what we call a hybrid fire insurance map, and it's not necessarily Sanborn. It can be anything. So it's a little different, and we'll have to see how the lawsuit with Eris and EDR goes. So it'll be interesting because I think they're violating their agreement when they bought Sanborn to share the Sanborn fire insurance maps with their competitors, basically. And I don't think they're doing that. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, we still provide fire insurance maps. And if there comes a day when we can't, that's fine. They only apply to 10 or 15% of the sites anyway. It's got to be downtown. Any of the newer rural sites, it doesn't apply. And then usually we can get the information other places like city directories. So, it's not really a crisis. Also, keep in mind, you can always go to your local main library in each city that you have a phase one in and actually view the Sanborn fire insurance maps yourself. And so it does work. There are a lot of ways to do it. We'll work with you to make sure you always have more than one choice to get fire insurance maps. Did that answer your question, Tom? I hope so. Any other questions? Yeah, the SOP is basically, if you go to SBA.gov, they have it on their website, and they have their most recent SOP. But it's the SOP for 5A, 504 and 7A loans, and their requirement for environmental section. They have the whole environmental section that I helped write in 2008, believe it or not. So anyway, the SOP is right up there on the screen. If you Google that, I'm sure it'll come up. If you put K where the J is, you'll get the most recent. But that's strictly currently for SBA loans. But it is law, and it's federal law for SBA loans now. And eventually it's going to leak into all phase ones and all federal, anything federally related. You're going to have to follow those procedures sooner or later. And I think that's coming sooner than later. So Eric Adams was the head attorney who put together the last one. And he's had trouble with getting people to bite off on good sound regulations. They had a lot of problems with people not doing the appropriate thing for vapor intrusion, and later on foreclosing on a property that was several properties that had a lot of vapor intrusion on them, and caused a huge problem and loss of money. Any other questions? BJ Adkins, can I forward it? Yes, you're a client. Susanna will go ahead and forward you a copy of this presentation. Then you have all the regulatory citations. for our clients, we'll do almost just about anything but give our product away free. Because if we do that, we won't be in business and be able to do these free webinars. So, BJ, we'd be glad to get you that stuff. Any other questions or anyone else need anything else? Just go ahead and email Susanna. Her email's there in the chat. And we'll go ahead and get back to you. Those of you who are new clients and you would like to be a client and get a copy of any of this information or whatever, just become a client. We'd love you to be a client. If you have any high volume, we work with you on the pricing. We really have good pricing for everybody, and we've got some new products coming out. So I think tomorrow we talk about our new products. We have a premium aerial package. We have a premium city directory package that's really slick. It costs you a little bit more money, but I think it'll save you that time in spades. So come and hear what I have to say about them. So anyone have any questions? Any more questions or anything? If not, I'm going to end this webinar, and it was nice having you. And those of you who are our current clients, we really appreciate your business. Those of you who aren't, hey, come on, get on board. We love working with people. We love working with you guys, and we love helping our clients do a cost-effective phase one and make money. Okie dokie. Well, everybody, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.